Are you? Just gonna make sure that I have my title posted here. Good morning. I'm gonna just post this. I think I set my title. Okay. Well, welcome. Thanks for joining me. My name is Dave Pearson. I'm a regional educator for L'Oreal Professionnel, and I have the pleasure of walking you through a modern version of chunky highlights. So just to get a quick glimpse as to what the end result is going to look like, I do have my model Ellie here. So she already has those high contrast highlights in her hair that I'm going to be doing on this side of her hair today during our demonstration. And you know, that 90s trend, that chunky highlight that was so everywhere is going to come back. We've already started to see celebrities using it. I think the first person as a celebrity I saw had it was Jennifer Lopez. She kind of was like the first post on Instagram that I saw with chunky highlights. And my first thought was, oh no, not again, right? Well, let me tell you, when a trend comes back, let's try not to focus on what we didn't like about the trend previously, but let's focus on what we can do to transform that trend to make it more modern, right? And so that's what I did. So during our lockdown, during quarantine, we had a lot of time to do a lot of playing around with the mannequins. We did a lot of digital education, and one of the things that was a priority for us was to learn how to do some of our services a little bit more quickly, because we had all these people who hadn't had their hair done in 3 months, and now we needed to be able to get more clients through more efficiently. And so learning how to work smarter and not harder was the name of the game. And so thinking about that and the chunky highlight trend, I came up with an idea, and I'm going to share that idea with you. All right, so I'm also going to be using our new Blond Studio Multi-Techniques Powder 8 with bonder inside. So that is my product that I'm going to be using today. I am going to be using Magicreme 30 volume because I want bold, chunky contrast. All right, so just going to get my gloves on here, and then we're going to get going. Also, if you have any questions while we're working through this over the next half hour, please drop them in the comments section. Any that I don't get to today, I will be checking them daily to go back in and answer any questions that have popped up on the feed. All right, so by all means, share your questions. So quickly, before I get into the head, what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix my lightener and my developer together. So here I have my powder. Here I have my Magicreme. Yes, I am using a shaker. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the powder over onto the developer. I am going to shake it. The reason why I like the shaker is that it mixes the product without adding extra oxygen. And what that does for me is that it makes it more creamy. So quite like baking, when you're folding in something, you're adding air into it. You want it to be light and fluffy. With lightener and with hair color, that's not really the goal. You want it to be creamy. You don't necessarily want it to be light and fluffy, because having creamy lightener or creamy color is making sure that you're getting great saturation. So that is one of the reasons why I am going to be using the shaker today. It only takes a little bit. You uncap it, and you have a beautiful, creamy lightener. All right. So always have a second brush handy, and all I'm going to do is scrape out the lightener from one side to the bowl that I'm going to be using. All right, it just takes a couple of seconds. All right, then you set that aside. And so now this is what I'm going to be using today. So I'm going to go ahead and get right into the demonstration. So as I said here, this is my model Ellie. She's had those high contrast highlights done. So there's actually a veil over them, which I'll expose later. So I want, shaken not stirred yet. I did it with a root shadow in mind, although I did not apply color, but in reality what I did was I gave her a root shadow and I gave her a veil over those chunky highlights. And that is what made my version modern. So it's very 2020, it's very easy to wear, and it has multiple exposures based off of where you part the hair. So enough about that. Let's turn her around and then we're gonna go and get into it. I'm gonna just adjust her a little bit. I want you guys to see what I'm doing here. Okay. So how I go about starting is, first of all, you wanna identify where your guest parts their hair. So I know with my particular Ellie here, she always parts slightly off to the left-hand side. And so that is what I'm using as her parting. Then what you do is you take a comb that has a sharp pointy end, right? Like a foiling comb, or just, this is a styling comb. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the point and I'm gonna use that point and I'm going to create a zigzag parting. So basically what I'm looking for are large diamond shapes. And what that is going to give me is my veil. Right, so zigzag your diamond shapes in. Now it doesn't have to be perfect. It's as perfect as you want it to be. Have a look, like lift it up, and then see what you have. All right, so that looks pretty good. This is a nice strong diamond here. All right, so that's what we're looking for in the zigzag. We want areas of negative space, and then we want areas of positive space. So that is what we're looking for. Now, there are two ways to approach this in terms of applying the vertical highlights, which is what we're going to be doing today, and that's how you get high contrast, okay? Let's see. I'm a little to the back. Can you see just want to make sure you can see here all around. All right, perfect. So what we're gonna do is, this one's a little wonky, which is no big deal, right? We'll just clean that one up. So just use your fingers and just strengthen it. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take a clip and I'm gonna pin all of that out of the way, because we're not going to touch it. We're not doing anything with this hair that we've taken away. Now, what you can do is, now you have a choice. So this is based off of where you're coming from with your guest consultation, right? So does she want a high contrast piece in the front, right at her hairline, right? So we actually do have her hairline piece out. Do you want your chunky highlights visible more often? If you do, then what you're going to do is you're going to put your vertical highlights where there is more negative space, right? So in this point area. So you would put a stripe here, you would put a stripe here, and then you would put a stripe here. Now, if you're looking for a little bit more veiled, if you're looking for a little bit more blend, right, but still have that high contrast feel, then what you're going to do is you're going to actually put the highlight sections, those vertical highlights, on the heavy part of the hair. So what that's going to do is it's going to give it a stronger veil over the vertical highlights, thus diffusing them more. So on the left side of Ellie's head, what I did was I put them on the heavy side, right? So I veiled them pretty heavily. And so what I just want to do is to be able to show you guys the difference is I am going to be using the shallow sides for this time around, okay? All right. So yeah, this is a really quick technique. It doesn't take a ton of time. All right, and so what I'm going to do, I'm going to start in the back. All right, so I want you guys to be able to see. So here's the back of my first zigzag. And like I said, you have your choice of using the heavy side, which would be right here, or the thin side, which would be here. So I'm going to use the thinner side. And all I'm going to do is take a vertical section. Now that's from our other side. I'm just going to pin this out of the way. So then essentially what I'm going to be doing is taking about a 1-inch section. All right. And that's going to become my chunky highlight. Okay. So this 1-inch section is going to become my chunky highlight. Perfect. Then what I'm going to do is just pin this other hair out of the way, just to keep a clean working surface. All right. So what I'm also going to do next is I am going to take that 1-inch parting that I created, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to split it into two. It's easier to paint it as a double highlight than it is to do one single highlight, I feel. And you should also make sure that you're getting really great saturation. So I'm just going to take half of that out of the way, and then I'm going to be working with this piece here. What else I'm going to be doing, so I think I saw somebody about, is my studio dry now? No, it is not. It's still perfectly creamy. Okay. I am also going to be using quick mesh. Sorry. I'm also going to be using quick mesh. And I like the quick mesh for this type of application. It is a thermal paper, so it does retain a certain amount of heat, but certainly it won't retain as much heat as our new Blond Studio 9 foil, so just be aware of that. But I like these for specifically vertical placements because it sticks to the hair really, really well when you're using your product. So I'm going to grab some product. I'm going to try and make this easier on myself. I don't have a tray. I don't have a color tray handy at home, so I'm doing a lot of transferring. So what I do is I just take my quick mesh, line it up on the parting. The piece of hair that I'm going to paint, I just grab it. And what I'm also doing, just so that you're aware, is I'm in that vertical parting. I am leaving out the last couple of inches. That's not going to have any highlight to it. So it's just a choice. You could certainly get the full look and have a full chunky vertical stripe. But remember, this is a modern version of high contrast chunky highlights. So all I'm doing is taking my mesh, laying the hair over it, pulling it back tight, and then I'm just going to go ahead and apply my lightener. All right, so this is Multi-Techniques 8 with bonder inside. I'm using 30 volume Magie Creme. All right, so that is my developer. We're going for high contrast here. All right, so just work that in. The great thing about this new technique as well, is that you don't have to worry about regrowth demarcation because everything is going to be veiled, right? So you don't have to worry about that at all. But saturation is still key. All right, and we're going for the full, We're going for the full coverage. And so all I'm going to do is I'm going to just take the hair and then lay it down onto that quick mesh. And then I'm just going to go ahead and paint this whole section. That's why I love the quick mesh, that it really sticks to the hair. I don't have to worry about them falling out. So you just want to get that saturated, even the ends. So Sorry, we keep having technical difficulty. I keep losing my connection. So now I'm taking the second piece of that 1-inch section that we originally took out, and now I'm going to just lay it over that first section that I already painted. Okay, so I'm basically just laying those two sections onto one mesh. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to be sandwiching those pieces together. All right. Any questions so far? If you're liking what I'm doing, show me some hearts. Give me some hearts in the chat box. Give me some red hearts in the chat box, or a thumbs up. All right. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take another quick mesh, and I am simply going to cover over that section that I've already painted. Now I want complete coverage, so I have a little bit sticking out right here, so I am going to go ahead and add another one, but they're so sticky, it just sticks right to it. Now what I'm going to do is now I'm going to take some negative space. So now I'm going to take about a good 3/4 of an inch, and what I'm going to do is pin that around to the side. All right, so this is now our negative space. So let me turn her. And then what I'm going to do now, again, is I'm going to take another 1-inch section. And this time I am encountering her ear, right? And so right at her ear, I am going to leave this little piece that falls right behind her ear. I'm going to leave that out because I actually want to be able to see this contrast when I'm looking through her hair from the front side, okay? So now I'm going to take, just like we did before, take that 2-inch section, split it in half, grab another quick mesh, set it out, and pull it over, and then paint. All right. So the great thing about this is that you can use any one of our L'Oreal Professional products for this particular technique. It doesn't have to be lightener. You could certainly use the Magi Mesh. You could certainly use Majorel Glow. You could use Cool Enforced. And that's what I love about our products, is that there's never any one single use for anything. There's a ton of opportunity to play with our very ample toolbox. So I have that done, which is nice and beautiful. Then I'm going to flip it over this way so I can get the lengths. So any of you who happen to follow my YouTube channel, which is also Hair by Dave, which is also the same as my Instagram, I have done similar tutorials as this, again, as part of my Working Smarter, Not Harder program. All right, so now I'm going to take that other half that's right at her ear. All right, and we're going to lay that right back over and paint that section. See, and again, with the quick mesh, I don't have to worry about it falling, because the moment I apply a product to it, it just sticks, and then I never have to worry about it slipping. All right, and for this application, what I did was I measured out 20 grams of Multi-Techniques Powder 8 with bonder inside. I used a 1:2 mix ratio, so I measured out 40 grams of the 30 volume. And I'm still having a beautiful creamy texture. And I'm getting that beautiful bond builder right inside with one service. I'm not adding any extra time. I'm going to go ahead and sandwich this one over. And one more. So now we're just continuing around. Thanks for the love you guys are showing. I appreciate it. Have I missed any questions? Do you guys have any questions so far? So now I'm going to go ahead and take out the negative space again, about 3/4 of an inch. Smooth this out to the side. All right. Which is now, the way it worked out is it's actually going to be where we wanted it, right? We wanted it in a place that wasn't heavily veiled. So we're going to take this piece, which is about an inch, inch and a half. Let's save a little bit of that out. Okay. And we're going to split this in two as well. So again, you can use regular foils for this, not a problem. I just happen to love the quick mesh, and whenever I have an opportunity to show it, I usually take the opportunity. All right, so I'm just placing it, pulling my hair over the mesh. Okay, there we go. Tucking it back in. And then applying my lightener to it. Now it's going to stick to the mesh. Have any of your guests started to ask for chunky highlights? I know that I'm starting to hear from some of my salons here in South Florida that some of their guests are now starting to ask for them. So it's good to be able to have a way to answer the call, but again, in a more modern way, which is what we're talking about today. So again, saturation is going to be key. My Multi-Techniques 8 with bonder inside is still beautifully creamy. If you want to see, that's what it's still looking like. Still beautifully creamy. Folding this piece back over. Working that lightener through. You know, because I did the little fold over, I need to make sure that I'm saturating all of that hair, bringing it all down. I don't know about you, but I love the opportunity to take something new and redo it, make it new and fresh. So I've been excited about this technique. And I've been doing it quite a lot recently because I'm excited about it, right? That's what we do. When we're excited about something, we tend to do it more frequently. All right, now we're going to take that piece. See how I just laid it right onto that existing mesh that I already had there. And now I'm just going to go ahead and paint this. Again, what I'm going to show you right here, because now we're getting a little close to the hairline. So we do need to make sure that the hairline is going to look good. So you just do want to make sure that you're tapping it at that hairline, getting saturation right at that hairline so that it's not looking spotty. All right, so making sure you get good coverage right there. All right, and then again, just bringing this over. Pulling this down. So I haven't noticed, I haven't seen anybody commenting on my question about have you started having anyone ask for high contrast or chunky highlights in your salon. I think it's definitely going to be East Coast, West Coast usually tend to fall on the trends a little bit quicker. And then as they become more popular, then the rest of the country starts to take note. But what's great about this technique is that it's so easy. You can actually go ahead and apply a root touch-up to the part we've pinned out, so that you're keeping, you can add a shadow root service to this service. So this is a great way to layer services on. So you charge for the chunky highlight, then you can charge for the root shadow, but in this case, like I said, we're not doing the root shadow. We're just using her existing hair for that. So I'm sealing this one up. All right. And now what we're gonna do is we just have our front hairline to deal with. Okay. So what we did was I purposefully left out this little bit of hair here, because I still want to have contrast even in the front. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and pin this part out of the way. Right? If we were to paint that whole section, then what we would have ended up with is like a really bright stripe right at her face, which doesn't really look very natural, right? And then the whole point about this is that it looks more natural. So this piece, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take a chunky weave. All right, let's go ahead. No, let's make it chunky. Come on, Dave. Let's follow your pattern here, like so chunky. Good. All right. So the reason why I did that, again, is we're right at her face. And I don't want a big blonde stripe right at her face. So I'm going to go ahead and place my mesh. All right, and then I'm going to go ahead and just do this chunky weave. Just give that some lightener. I like to give good saturation right at the top, and then I go back in and feather it up, and then finish it off. So now she's still going to have brightness at her face. She's still going to have some contrast at her face. So that's exactly what we want. We're wanting this to be a modern take on a 90s trend. And with this, we are achieving it. So, all right. So now I'm just going to seal her up. She's now done. She's fully painted. I'm going to let her process, I'm going to let her process for about up to 50 minutes. I really want a lot of contrast, so I want to make sure that I give her enough time to process so she has a lot of contrast to show. I have not toned either side yet, so this original side here, so I'm going to let this down. So this was the original piece, zigzag piece that we left out. Just going to drop that over, because what I want to show you is the final of this side. So I just gave her some beautiful soft waves. You can see the chunks of highlight here, but what I want to show you is under the veil of that zigzag, you see the chunks. Okay, so the chunks are there. They're there. They're high contrast. They're very bold. They're very visible. And what they're doing is that zigzag that we pulled out in the beginning is what creates the veil. Right? So if you were to just split this, you can still see contrast. And then when you drop this part down, it's less contrast. Okay? And that's how we put a new shift or a new twist on a 90s classic. All right. So I hope you enjoyed my tutorial today. I had a lot of fun doing it, and I'm going to go ahead and finish, let her finish processing. Then I will see if she needs a toner, and if she does, I will do that toner on her, and then I'll give her a blow dry and a style, and we'll post the final pictures later. All right, again, thanks again. Again, my name is Dave Pearson, Regional Educator for L'Oreal Professionnel at Hair by Dave on Instagram and YouTube. Have a great day.